what if Buddy Holly actually survived the plane crash?
He's wearing this necklace that has this amulet on it, which is what kept him alive. What if he was just alive in the early 70s and he gives this interview?
When you're writing these stories, I always wonder if you're stirring up some energy.
I will vehemently say I don't believe it, but I am always looking over my shoulder.
Yes.
We're totally booked.
Rock and roll!
Well, I think I'll leave you to your reading.
Little Hand says it's time to rock and roll.
Rock and roller!
We are totally booked.
Welcome back to Booked on Rock, the podcast for those about to read and rock. I'm Eric Senich. Great to have you with us. Before we get started and introduce the guest, if you want to support the podcast, get episodes commercial free, sign up for the Backstage Pass from Patreon for just $5 a month. The link is in the show notes, or you can go to bookedonrock.com. You'll find it there as well. Now on to our guest, Mark Slade, really a friend of the show. He's been a huge supporter of the show. He's been on in the past. Now he's got a brand new book out called Rock and Roll Ghosts. Mark, it is good to see you again. How you doing, man?
Hey, how you doing, Eric? Thank you. Wow, that was smooth. I had no idea how you did those intros. I thought you did them afterwards. That was great.
Yeah. No, actually, I just started inserting them into the beginning and just do it while I'm recording. But you're onto something there. I used to do them at the end. Now,
and there's no wrong way to do them.
You know, we're pros here. So you're
a pro.
You were on, God, was it 3 years ago?
3 years ago. We were talking about the magazine, but then we geared into occult. Oh, hey, that's crazy because this is about occult stuff. So, so you kind of had an influence on this.
Yeah. Twisted Pulp magazine.
Yeah.
So
yeah. We want you back in whenever you can.
I was able to contribute a few articles, and I know I think I did the Van Halen one. Warning. Yeah.
Yes, and I remember I was doing my book review on the Van Halen book, and I needed you to fact check it, make sure my facts were right.
That's right.
Yep.
So yeah, now you have this book, Rock and Roll Ghosts. So it's described as a collection of interconnected horror stories that explore the dark occult mythology behind the birth of American music. Was there a particular story or legend, maybe something about like the Blues Crossroads myth or a haunted recording that first pulled you into this world?
Not exactly. I think I've had the idea almost since I was a kid in a way, because I used to look at, I don't know if you used to get these, like Rolling Stone magazine had their own, what is it? It's like the profiles of every rock and roll act that there ever was. Oh, yeah. Go by the alphabet, you know, they might start with, well, I'm just throwing a name out there, like ABBA, and then go into others, Tom Petty. But I noticed
I have the Billboard Rocks, Movers and Shakers book.
Yeah. But you know, it was stuff like that. Yeah, I got it right here. The Rolling Stone Illustrated History of Rock and Roll. That was the first one I ever looked at, and it was first published in 1976. But I probably looked at the 1980-82 one. What struck me about it was kind of strange. Was they only had paragraphs for certain acts, but the bigger ones like the Beatles, which makes sense, would have like 4 or 5 pages. But then like somebody like Tom Petty would have like a paragraph. And I'm like, you know, you could write a little more about him. But I always had the idea I wanted to do my own, which kind of be a fake one, where it would be different acts I would create alongside real acts. But then during the pandemic, I remembered that and I started work on it again and kind of thinking about Memphis and New Orleans, especially with Fats Domino, the voodoo thing kind of coming in, remembering the movie Angel Heart kind of seeped into that story, kind of thinking about how all my life I kind of heard, well, younger life I'd heard how evil rock and roll was, and you know, you see those preachers on TV, you know, they're talking about Stairway to Heaven. And so, you know, I just kind of thought about that, the occult. And I was like, well, what if those stories were true? What if all that they were saying, what if rock and roll really was evil? And that's where it kind of began. And then another thing that kind of influenced was excluding your podcast, but supposedly educational podcasts where people just start them up, but they wouldn't do any research. So they were just making up things, making up facts. And that was during most of the pandemic. And I go, if they can lie, I can lie too. Why not? I'd make a whole book about this, which the original idea was a podcast. And then I turn it kind of into
I got you. Yeah. So let's have some fun with it. Let's get creative and take these real people and turn them into these stories like you describe them, as short, fast-paced tales that feel like campfire confessions. That storytelling style, what inspired you to approach it that way?
The Twilight Zone.
Okay.
Most definitely. Twilight Zone and that whole period of science fiction, fantasy, and horror with the writers like Richard Matheson, Charles Beaumont, people like that, and Ray Bradbury. And they always wrote swift, concise stories that you could sit on a bus, a train, in a doctor's office while you're waiting and read the entire story. That's what I always had it in my mind to do, all my short stories, like if I can. Now, some, like the Fats Domino one, kept on going, and I had no idea how to end it. I mean, it took me, we're talking every day for 2 months. I was writing that story, and something kept popping up that I wanted in it. It was so crazy.
That particular one?
Yeah. I was like, I got to end this. It can't go on. And so I looked at the word count, and I was like, oh, man, is that almost 6,000 words? Oh, no way. I got to find another way to end it.
The early days of rock and roll. You asked this in the book. Do you know the real stories about the early days of rock and roll? What made that particular era such fertile ground for the mythology that you explore in Rock and Roll Ghosts?
Probably because there's so many different rumors about it. And only until people started doing a lot of books about it, and even a lot of those books weren't exactly true, but documentaries that have come out about these performers, you always heard rumors and things that didn't quite sit right. You go, did Chuck Berry really, take that song from somebody? Did he really hear this certain song that was a Slavic song? Or I'd heard that rumor. And I think a lot of that came from like people who are much older than us, probably sitting around smoking some weed and, listening to the records, and, they just start talking. And then all of a sudden, just like the thing about Paul is dead, it just goes around and becomes fact.
How much of it too this is long before the internet era. So there's less there, which makes it more intriguing. It's like the Buddy Holly plane crash. There's like a few photos. That's it.
Which is interesting about that. You brought that up. For that Buddy Holly story that I did, I was watching that documentary about 3 or 4 years ago that the British put out. I want to say it was the late 90s, maybe 2000s. And they actually went in and they explored the grounds, but they talked to people who worked with that pilot. And it turned out the pilot was not feeling well himself, and he was actually going blind.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's nuts. I'll send you the link to it. I think it's still on YouTube.
Yeah. Well, I've seen videos of the actual location, the last gig that Buddy Holly and the Crickets played. And that's pretty eerie. They've preserved that very well.
Yes. And the fact that country star Waylon Jennings was his bass player at the time. And he flipped a coin, I think, with Big Bopper. See, Waylon Jennings he had bronchitis or something. He was very sick. And of course, the plane had a little bit of a heater, but the bus didn't have any heat. So whoever lost that coin toss had to ride the bus. And that's when Waylon lost the coin toss. Big Bopper got to go on the plane, and him and Buddy Holly were bantering. They always bantered. They were like brothers. And Waylon, I don't know how old he was. I can't remember. I want to say he was like 16 or 17.
He was a kid.
And I think Buddy Holly was what, 24, 25?
Yeah.
Maybe. And so Buddy Holly says, well, I hope your bus crashes. He says, well, I hope your plane crashes. And Waylon said in that documentary, he said, boy, it bothered me almost my entire life that I said that to one of my best friends.
He's been the greatest source of information for that story.
Yes.
But if you think if that happens today, man, no stone is unturned, but there's still things you wonder about it. Like I say, you get those few photos of the crash and things like that. Calvin Swale, tell us about him before we get into these stories. You introduce readers to Calvin Swale, his book, The True History of Rock and Roll. Can you share that story and why it was important to include in the book?
It was important because he somehow had inside source to these stories, and his source was I'm blanking on the character's name, but this character, he's involved in some really shady occult stuff. He's kind of the underling to the main bad guy in the story, and what he does is that he creates chaos wherever he goes, telling little fibs and stuff. And so the thing's caught up to him. He's more human than anything, whether a demon or not. But in his later days, I was just thinking that he was this guy who used to be a journalist, and Calvin Swale's a journalist who couldn't really make it. So he does an interview with Calvin Swale, and he tells him all these stories, but it gets Calvin Swale into some really terrible occult stuff, and he disappears. Some people think that he jumped off a bridge in Detroit. Others claim they keep seeing him. He's still alive, walking around today.
That sets the tone for the book.
Yeah, and it makes you think, well, are these lies or are these true stories?
Well, that's what I was going to say. The way it's written, if you're really not familiar with these characters or these people, these musicians, these stories, you might think, is this true?
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Do you think that younger audiences, if they pick this up, would they even know who these people are without Googling?
The ones like Elvis, yeah, but there's certain ones that they won't, and they might wonder if it's true or not.
Yeah. Which in some regard, I have to say, I kind of like that.
You take that as a compliment. Seriously, the way it's written. Yeah. One of the stories, or one of the chapters, tells the story of Elvis encountering what you describe as a demon dog from hell.
Yeah. I took it from where I remember seeing many documentaries. I didn't read any books about him recently. I know I've read a few, but it was so long ago. But also hearing the stories of when he was a truck driver.
Right. That's what's cool about it. It's pre-famous Elvis.
Yeah, I was trying to do that. And I wanted to do a little bit of what if his twin brother also was alive. That's where I kind of wanted to go. But I wanted to have a David Lynch twist in it where, where you're like, well, no, why did he just pop up in here? That kind of thing. But, the demon dog thing, I'm trying to remember. It was something that they hired Elvis and his friend was hired. And of course, his friend was always getting him into trouble. That was one of the main plots in it. And of course, they were supposed to pick something up for the main bad guy, and they didn't exactly get to do it perfectly. And that's what set off the demon dog to hunt Elvis down and, basically kind of ruin his, I want to say it would ruin his present life after he became famous. That's the way I looked at it. Everybody else might get to have another take on it.
Well, I thought of it as like an omen of things to come.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. A black dog, that's definitely an omen. It ruin your life, make all kinds of terrible. Have you make terrible decisions. You're always looking over your shoulder. Is somebody going to finally come across and that's the end of my life, and where's my soul going to go?
Little Richard's in the book. One of the chapter imagines Little Richard finding himself in a church filled with ghosts. His life had deep connection to religion, especially gospel music. So how did that spiritual background influence this story?
The documentary, it was an early 80s documentary again, the British sure do make great documentaries about our culture. I wish we did. But he was talking about a time in his life where he thought he was doing evil, and he needed that spiritual guidance. And that's when he quit singing and he turned to the church and became an ordained preacher. So I was trying to think, well, what if there was an incident that caused this? You know, what if he actually had these powers, kind of like, you know, and Stephen King had a few of his characters, where they could sense ghosts, but they felt sick all the time whenever they did. And that's what led to, you know, like he thought he had a head cold or it was allergies, and he gets off the bus and he's so mad at his band members, his girlfriend, and he just needs to walk it off. And that's where he ends up. He ends up in a church. And of course, getting sicker and sicker as he goes into the church.
Right. Yeah. It just reflects the tension between his religious roots and his rock and roll persona.
Which Jerry Lee Lewis also had the same thing going on. And I don't know if you ever heard this. It was on YouTube where him and Sam Phillips, Sun Records, they had this awful argument, him and Jerry Lee Lewis. It was it's on YouTube, you can listen to it, and I think it might have been the $1 Million Club, you know, where they had Johnny Cash and Elvis and Carl Perkins were all there, and they were singing and, you know, having a good time. And then for some reason, Sam Phillips I think he made a comment about God, and all of a sudden Jerry Lee Lewis just goes berserk. That kind of influenced a couple things in the book. The religious tension is a part of this book.
Well, I was also going to say what's interesting is the dangerous power of the beat in rock and roll. Reverend Snow in that story talks about the dangers of that and how it can trap someone in a certain state. And there's another story titled Let Us Pray, same theme, where the main character, Billy, can't get this beat out of his head. So were you drawing on the real historical fear that the rhythm of rock music awakened something rebellious or even primal in people? Because that's what preachers were talking about.
And they were saying it was causing all kinds of crime and rapes and murders. And I mean, they were just going at it with this strange new music that they didn't understand.
What's that famous clip? Was it a preacher? He's like, it's in the beat. It's in the beat. It's in the beat.
That's him. That's where I got that character from. And some of his dialogue is in that story with the Little Richard, where he's preaching about all kinds of terrible things that would happen to people if they listen to this. And you've got to believe in the Almighty God, or you know, have your soul saved, and you'll be wiped clean of all this terrible music, this jungle music. And I mean, he was just going off. And the thing is, I didn't use the real guy's name because he's still alive. He's still alive. Oh my God. He's still alive, still preaching. He's like in his 90s and he's still preaching. I looked him up and he's got a website, and he used to record albums as well. That's where I got that from.
Wow. I didn't know that. Elvis was like considered the devil by parents,
which is crazy because he was deeply religious.
That's what's fascinating too, though. It's that tension, that back and forth between religion, God, and rock and roll.
Absolutely. And, you know, they would make up their own stories for their followers, so that they would make sure their kids did not go to any of the shows. And you know, granted, there's always dangers when you or your kids go to any of these shows. You could end up in that 1979, 1978 stampede when the Who took the stage in Ohio. Yep. Was it Cincinnati? I think.
One of my favorite shows, WKRP in Cincinnati. They whipped together an episode within weeks after it, if not days.
One of the best TV shows ever.
Mark Slade, the author of the new book, Rock and Roll Ghosts. All right, chapter on Alan Freed, legendary DJ whose career was destroyed by the early 60s payola scandal, where he was found to have accepted money from record companies to play specific records, which he was like one of thousands, you know, if not hundreds of, but he was the guy. He was the one at the top. So you got to take him down. The story's titled Moondog's One Hell of a Deal, and it references the nickname that Freed used on the air, Moondog. So what inspired that title and the idea behind the story? Tell us about this.
I was listening to a podcast. This was a really good podcast. I just can't remember the name of it, but it's talking about scandals. I think it's called American Scandals. And that was one of them. But the thing is, what he was pointing out is, yes, he was guilty, but there was so many others. And the other popular one who should have been brought down with him was Dick Clark. Because Dick Clark was doing the very same thing. He was buying these songs from people. He was putting his name on it, along with them, taking about 60% of their royalties. And it was just so devious. And the singers that like these guys, and Alan Freed is guilty of this. I think he had a handful of the of a couple of the late 50s acts in his pocket, where he was supposed to be their manager, and he was getting 100% of their money, and then it's giving them, like, I don't know, maybe $30-$40 to live off of, and they'd have to split it between each other. So, but taking all that in with Alan Freed, if a lot of it, if it wasn't for him promoting it, I don't think it would have caught on. I don't think rock and roll would have caught on at all, you know. Which is one of the reasons why the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is held there, right? Isn't it held in Ohio?
Yes.
Yeah, Cleveland, which is where he began. He began his show. So, but the actual structure of that story, again, comes from writers like Richard Matheson. So in everyday life, say, for instance, you're doing your podcast, and you know, you're interviewing somebody, and just all of a sudden somebody from behind appears and they start talking to you, and you turn around and you go through all this with them. You may even leave the house, go out in the street, and you come back, and then if you're interviewing me, I could still be sitting there, and I go, "Where'd you go? You just like disappeared." So those were kind of, again, some of the Twilight Zone qualities, and especially from those writers like Ray Bradbury, Richard Matheson, Charles Beaumont, bringing that in.
I'm so glad you brought up those names, because Rod Serling gets all of the credit, which, of course, I mean, he created the show. Yes. I mean, but he didn't write all the episodes. He wrote a lot of them in, I think, the first few seasons, but then he brought in these outside writers who were amazing.
Almost immediately, he brought those guys in. He knew that he couldn't handle all the writing by himself, and he didn't want CBS to appoint writers, which is what happens on a lot of shows. His staff would be loose staff. Mostly it'd be him and his producer, Buck Houghton. And they would have the meetings with the writers. They might even I think they even had a table with a bunch of the writers. They would bring them in. But most of the time, those writers like Richard Matheson, Charles Beaumont, they would come in, they'd pitch face to face to Buck Houghton. Buck would say yes. He'd send a synopsis to Rod. Rod, of course, anything that Matheson and Beaumont did, he would say yes, because they were suggested to him by Ray Bradbury. And for a short time, Serling and Bradbury were very good friends. But I think egos got in the way of that. And then, of course, Bradbury and some of his friends always would say, well, I think Rod took a little bit of my story for his script. But the thing is, there's so many stories out there, so many like-minded people. There's no way he could have ripped them off. Not every one of them.
He died when he was only like, did he make it 50?
54 or 53. He was cutting the grass and he keeled over. I read his daughter's book, Anne Serling, and it was pretty heartbreaking. He had, I think Night Gallery had just been canceled maybe a couple of years before. He may have been writing some TV movies, but I mean, he hadn't been doing a whole lot of work after that. Oh, I think he was narrating a radio show, believe it or not.
Yes, the fictional rock and roll concert that some radio station put on, like in Buffalo or something.
Really? See, I don't know that story. No, I was thinking of the one, 0 Hour, that he was narrating. But he did a lot of those. Oh man, what is the In Search Of?
Right.
Before Leonard Nimoy came on, he did the movies like Chariots. like the spacemen coming from outer space and they populate the Earth. You know, it's just some crazy stuff.
No,
man.
here's Fantasy Park, a 48-hour fictional radio rock concert broadcast over Labor Day weekend in 1975, hosted by Rod Serling, produced by KNUS in Dallas. The Concert of the Mind featured simulated live performances from top acts like the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and the Who. It was one of Serling's final projects, featured his voice in promos and hourly updates.
Oh my gosh, I'm looking that up.
And there's a great podcast, the Twilight Zone podcast.
Yes, that's how I found you. You left a voicemail.
I did, and I love that show. And I asked the host, I said, "What do you know about this?" And he was just like, "I don't know anything beyond what everybody else knows." So there's a project, there's a book. If you could find out more on that, man, that'd be fascinating, because it's really all we know is just kind of the basics of it. I think there's clips of it on YouTube.
Oh wow, I'm definitely looking that up. I bet Internet Archive might have it all.
That's how you discover me.
Yeah, yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, look, here's the thing about all that. I was working overnights. I was doing produce overnights, and I needed something to listen to. And like I told you, I'd been going through all these podcasts, nothing against anybody. I understand how it is that you can't have all the stuff in your head and you can't always Google, but sometimes more than sometimes they just make up stuff. And then it became such a chore to listen through that stuff. And they would say the most outrageous stuff and then try to make it true.
You have to be real careful. Yeah.
Yeah. And they want to make it their own political statement and all this mess. And finally, I was listening to that Twilight Zone podcast, and I'd had some contact with that dude
Tom
before
Elliott.
Too. Very nice
Super
guy.
nice guy from Liverpool.
Yeah. And I heard you and I go, oh, I got to listen to this. And then when I listened to it, and you had another show before
Discovery.
that. Yeah. I was
it.
listening to that. God,
yeah, that was cool. And one of the episodes I did were songs that were inspired or included Twilight Zone in the title and stuff. I was just having fun with it. Really, that was it.
Yeah.
Because I just left radio and I'm like, I really want to have fun and just do a podcast. I always, wanted to do one. But as soon as I started listening to him, I'm like, damn, this is great. Yeah, Tom Elliott. And he has that great delivery, the overnight DJ delivery.
and never make the mistake that, oh, I did this with a lady I used to work with. I said, oh, it sounds like you might be Irish. I am from Liverpool.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Yes.
Oh, I wanted to ask you. Now, did I hear this right on one of your podcasts that somebody had texted you that their son was working for Keith Richards and Keith Richards made him a sandwich and gave him a beer?
My sister. So my dad remarried and had a daughter, Mary Ellen. And so her boyfriend installs pools here in Connecticut.
Oh, okay.
So she texted me and she says, hey, Eric, Cody is working on Keith Richards' pool. I was like, oh, get out of here, man. I said, what's he like? I always hear he's cool. What's the nicest guy? Yeah. Sandwiches. Can I get you anything? Yeah. Yeah.
That is awesome.
He lives in, it's like Wilton, Connecticut, I think, or something like that. Yeah. The man. Keith.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a normal guy.
He is. Yeah. Let's go back to the Buddy Holly story. This may be the most fascinating one in the book. This is cool. What if Buddy Holly actually survived the plane crash? And
he gave this interview.
And it opens as a fictional magazine interview from 1974. What inspired you to present the story in that format?
I couldn't think of any other way to do it. I could have went ahead and wrote about him where he was living incognito on a farm not far from the crash site, and this family brings him in, and I think it was a father and a daughter, if I remember correctly. And of course he falls in love with the daughter and he just lives there, and no one knows that he is still alive until, what was it, the mid 60s, I think, or early 60s when he come out. And I have him, he finally decided he got the muse and he wanted to perform again, gets all these different types of managers and things like that. And some sort of shady stuff happens. Some good things happen, but he's wearing this necklace that has this amulet on it, which is what kept him alive. And I could have presented that as just the story, but I decided, well, what if he was just alive in the early 70s and he gives this interview, and all the other stuff that had happened to him, he didn't talk much about it. He just wanted to do the records, and that was it. And again, the character that I had, the shadowy character who had dealings with Freed, and just about every character in this book, he cajoles Buddy Holly into giving an interview. And yeah.
Oh man, I love that story.
Thank you.
Thank you. That story. I mean, imagine that. That's like, people say, I saw Elvis. He's in Home Alone. He's standing in line at the airport. Exactly. That also probably had a little bit of effect on me. Remember all those stories, and remember Jim Morrison.
What's it called? Oh yeah,
living in Africa. Yeah.
Which we find out it was Ray Manzarek was spreading that story.
Yeah.
Because John Densmore said that. He said, oh, that was Ray doing that. We didn't have anything to do with that stuff. But it kept our records alive.
It sure did.
So
yeah, sure did. Fats Domino gambling his soul in order to remove a curse from a friend.
Right.
Okay, this is because one of the most famous legends in blues history is Robert Johnson supposedly selling his soul at the crossroads for musical talent. In your story, Fats Domino risks his soul to remove a curse from a friend. Were you intentionally reimagining that classic myth?
I wanted to make sure I didn't use that. It's been overused, and it's been used really well. And there's no way I could ever do that without people calling me out and saying, oh, you're just regurgitating older material from other people. So again, I was just thinking of Fats Domino. What was his life? And I read this book. It was a book called Blue Monday, and I can't remember the guy's. Oh, Rick Coleman.
Rick Coleman.
I was thinking of his life because he described how he worked at these factories. I think it was a bread factory before and he was doing the music on the side on the weekends, and he was already married. I think he already had 4 kids. And he was barely making it. But I was thinking he had this friend that he always hung around. And just like with Elvis, you always have this one friend you shouldn't hang around. And this friend used to be a ladies' man. And that's what Fats thinks is how he got the curse on him. But see, this is where Fats gives a homecoming concert in New Orleans. He'd already been away. He'd done I think I had it where he did 35 dates all over the West Coast, and then a little bit in the South. And then his last concert was homecoming, and they had a riot. and he barely got away without being arrested. I think some of his band members may have been arrested, or they talked their way out of it. I know a manager paid some fines, and paid off for the auditorium being messed up. So what I had was the aftermath of that. He's sitting there and he's playing. He's just messing around on the piano, not really playing anything, not really writing any songs. And somebody comes up, and it's one of his best and oldest friends. And I had this idea that, well, what if one of the things he used to do when he was younger is that he was an occult detective, that he was a fixer in the occult. And he had all this knowledge of how to get rid of curses, and he dealt with demons and devils and all that. And that was kind of the sketch that I had in my head of how the story would go.
The Booked on Rock podcast is part of the Boneless Podcasting Network. If you're a fan of classic rock and classic film like I am, go to boneless.lovable.app to find over 20 great shows there. That's boneless.lovable.app, or just go to bookedonrock.com, the Boneless Podcasting Network. It is what you want it to be. Listen with confidence. You also have these hidden tracks throughout the book, right? This is cool. Much like a hidden song, that used to appear on CDs. One of them opens with rockabilly pioneer Janice Martin encountering a mysterious man guarding a strange black box in a drugstore cafeteria. The opening is vivid and it's creepy, and it introduces Janice Martin in a way that immediately builds tension. I'm curious as to what inspired you to structure parts of the book that way.
To do it that way is exactly what you're saying, the hidden tracks. Man, like Cracker, you remember the band Cracker? Sure. How many tracks did they have on that one album that they had the really big hit song that they had?
Yeah, Cracker.
I want to say Low was the hit, and then they had some because I think they were building
the album Kerosene Hat.
Yeah, Kerosene Hat. What? Thank you for looking that up, because that is such a great album.
It is, yeah.
And then toward the end, I think, what is it, like 70 tracks, which is crazy that in 1993 or 4 or 5 you could do something like that. That sounds like more modern. But I got that idea. What if I didn't list these on the table contents? But the thing is, when Lothar, my cohort, him and Chauncey are my cohorts for stuff like this, Lothar did a great at it. But he went ahead and put that on the table contents, but I didn't want to correct him on it, because I said, nah, that's a pretty good idea too, to list them. It's fine.
Yeah, they're from Twisted Pulp.
Yeah, I've been working with them for Lothar I've known for almost 8 years. We used to do audios together. He was one of the actors I used to always get. And Chauncey, I met on his show. He interviewed me for a book, and I was telling him some of the stuff I was doing, like some of the audio dramas I was doing, and he said he was always wanted to do that. And then we got to talk, and he wanted to do a magazine, and we just jumped in.
Very talented guys. The three of you, man. The guys, what you do together.
A lot more talented than I am, I'll tell you.
I don't know, man.
They make me look good.
You got skills as well, but yeah, Lothar, I've heard the stuff that he's done, the voiceover acting, I guess you would call it, for your stories.
Yes.
And Chauncey's got a radio voice.
Oh,
he's got the
smooth,
voice.
Isn't it? Both those guys have such great voices. And if Lothar wanted to, he could scare the bejesus out of you with it. But Chauncey has got this really calming voice.
Yeah.
I mean, and very informational voice. And I loved his show as well. He was just really good at it.
If I remember correctly, Lothar was really into the occult, music and the occult, right?
Yeah,
he mentioned that during our interview. He
helped me a whole lot with this book. When you're writing something like this and you're focusing on like 20 different projects, we always have a bunch of stuff going. He always would bring me back to, hey, you kind of left off here, but what if it went this direction? And that's a sign of a really good editor, and not just fixing your spelling and grammar, which I need, but just saying, what if we pulled this Fats Domino story slightly in this direction because of the voodoo and all this other stuff, and calling the main lady in Dickie Lowe, what if she was the Scarlet Woman that Aleister Crowley was always talking about, creating this Antichrist? And I said, well, yeah, might as well go for that too. So he had a lot of good ideas.
Hey, when you, I have to ask this, when you're writing these stories, be it for this book or just in general for Twisted Pulp magazine, things like that, do you ever, I always wonder if you're stirring up some energy, and do you ever have, like, you hear something strange, like some knocking, or what the hell was that, or feel a cold breeze go through you?
Well, personally, not exactly.
Do you believe in that stuff? I guess
I don't, but look, I'm human. I am as superstitious as the next person, and I will vehemently say I don't believe it, but I am always looking over my shoulder.
Yes.
And my wife always calls me out on it, but I can't help it. I'm human. Especially when I used to work nights, I always heard and saw stuff because I was tired, or it could be many factors. But yeah,
because I'm so fascinated with the darker side of music, all these mysteries, and sometimes I'll get so deep into that rabbit hole, I kind of creep myself, like, whoa, I'm going to start stirring up some dark spirits in the room here. I better.
Oh yeah, well, most definitely, especially when you're doing research and reading Well, one of the books that helped the idea of this,
because it just, I think about that a lot. Like, because I wanted to do a podcast. I think at one point I was thinking about, let me do some of the just like this, like get into some of the eerie stories in rock history, music history. And I thought, boy, I don't know if I could really, because to do it, I want to fully invest myself 100%. And that might pull me down into a.
Well, you also have to really love the music, and you have to take everything with a grain of salt. But us, we're practically the same age. We grew up in that time period where Satan worship was supposedly true.
Right.
And
in the 80s.
You always saw, was it called First Edition or whatever the crappy supposed news show was. And now it's nothing but the networks. They're all that. But they always said things that were so outrageous. And, go to Omaha and interview this poor farmer who saw
Jesus in a window, right? It was like the stain on the
something
window.
like that.
Jesus.
Or aliens come up and they kidnapped him and his wife and made them eat some sort of grain.
And of course, KISS, the band, it stands for Knights in Satan's Service, of course,
and of course, again, it goes back to because of Led Zeppelin and Peter Grant's great idea that don't let the boys be interviewed.
Mm-hmm.
No television exposure. Whatever people say about you, so what? It only makes you more popular. And if they think Stairway to Heaven has backward messaging, heck yeah.
Never get in the way of a good story, because there's no such thing as bad publicity. It's gonna, and it worked.
And some of these stories are kind of in this book called Season of the Witch, How the Occult Saved Rock and Roll. And it's by Peter Bebergal. I'm probably messing up your name, Peter. I'm sorry. I had one Facebook message in exchange with him, and I told him about that. I told him my project, and he said, "Good luck." He said, "But it's a great idea. I wish I'd have thought of it."
That's cool.
I was hoping to get him to possibly, give me a quote or something, but no interaction whatsoever. And it's not him. He probably doesn't get on it. So
you mentioned aliens. Jerry Lee Lewis in the book falls in love with an alien. The story is titled "The Alien Wore Blue Jeans." So his personal life was almost as notorious as his music, especially the controversy surrounding his relationships. Did that larger than life and sometimes scandalous reputation influence how you approach his character in this story?
Absolutely. And I watched, I don't know if you've seen this yet, but you should look it up. It's called Trouble in Mind, and it's a documentary directed by Ethan Coen. One of the Coen brothers put it together. It's all archival footage. It's no headshots. It's nobody saying, "Oh, he was an influence on me," and his music's great. And then they cut to somebody saying, "But he was an awful person." None of that. It's just him and one of his ex-wives, maybe some of the band members talking about him, and him talking about the stories. And again, it was the religious thing that got me on this, because I remember that I think he went to school. He was going to be a preacher. I don't think he ever became ordained, but he was going to school. But the thing is, when he was in school, he was, again, a ladies' man. And I think he met an older lady. I want to say he either lived with her or he married her for a short time. But even that was so short because he found another girl who was going to school there. So I kind of used that, it's supposed to be the aftermath of all the chaos that sort of ruined his career, his momentum, I should say.
So the alien really represents something?
Well, yeah, it kind of, it represents maybe a guy would hope that it was a gorgeous woman. It comes to visit you, and not those scary gray aliens who are always sticking their fingers in your butt.
Yes.
Things like that. But it was mostly that documentary and how he was talking about, he wasn't apologizing, because he was just saying, "Hey, I did some bad stuff and it just happened. It was life. But also, I know I'm going to be judged when I see God. So I'm all right with that too. I'm paraphrasing, but it was kind of a quote that he said. And yeah, I had it where he was. Now, granted, I don't think Jerry Lee Lewis would ever go into a cafe and drink coffee. Would he read a book? Probably, but it wouldn't be Harlan Ellison's book on rockabilly. Which I didn't say it was Harlan Ellison's book, but I kind of described it. And I had him laughing about it because Jerry Lee Lewis was the reason that Harlan Ellison wrote that book about him, about that character. And, the chaotic thing that was going on and him marrying his cousin and, basically calls it, again, he was one of those performers just like Fats Domino and Chuck Berry, causing riots because people get so excited. They couldn't help themselves to hear this music,
Sure. Thanks so much for checking out the Booked on Rock podcast. If you've just found the podcast, welcome. If you've been listening, thank you so much for your support. And make sure you tell a friend, a family member, share on social media, and let people know about Booked on Rock. And if you do like the podcast, make sure you subscribe, give a 5-star review wherever you listen to the Booked on Rock podcast. We're on Amazon, Apple, iHeart, Spotify, Spreaker, TuneIn, and on YouTube Music. You can check out the full episodes on video, along with video highlights from episodes on the Booked on Rock YouTube channel. Find it at Booked on Rock. Thanks again for listening. Now back to the show. Chuck Berry, he's in the book too. He plays a mysterious chord that leads to dire consequences. In one scene, you describe feedback, distortion, and strange harmonics building into something almost uncontrollable. A dark shape emerges. Early rock musicians were often criticized for those sounds, those very sounds. People thought they were chaotic or even dangerous. So were you intentionally tapping in to that historical fear of rock sonic power, much like the beat?
Most definitely. And it was Black Sabbath, the story of how they supposedly got that name. Was it Geezer Butler who said he saw this shape rising up at the end of his bed? So that I got that from that. I also got it from a Robert E. Howard story. And it's a story about a mysterious record. Now, Robert E. Howard days, he died, I think he killed himself in 1935, maybe 1933. I'm probably wrong on my dates. He's the creator of Conan, but he wrote horror stories as well.
Oh, wow.
And he wrote the story about, I think the character's name's Stephen Cordigan. Again, I'm probably wrong. It's been so long since I read that story, but again, it's a friend. He goes and visits this friend, and this friend is mesmerized by this record. And I think back then records were 78s. So he had it playing continuously, this character. And he would listen to it, and it sounded like somebody was speaking in slow motion and chanting and all this weird stuff. And then the shape was rising up. And so the friend, I know it's probably kind of a silly ending to people modern, but I thought it was pretty brilliant. He just reaches over, grabs the record, and breaks it. That breaks the spell. Now, I know that's a curt ending, but again, I just thought it was brilliant. How else could you end it? You would have to keep the story going, that he has to fight the demon that rises up, or whatever that evil was, or the evil eats them, or whatever. You would have to keep the story going. But the way he just ended it, it's perfect. So I got that from where Chuck Berry, he's walking the streets. He's kind of having a little bit of a songwriter's block, maybe not. I don't know. I can't remember what I had in that particular story, but he's going down the street and he sees a record shop that he'd never seen before. And it's owned by this Slavic guy, this older, maybe he was Polish, I can't remember. And, he goes in the shop and he sees this one particular record and he gets fascinated with it. And he doesn't know why he's fascinated, but he picks it up and he asks the old man, "Oh, how much?" And the old man says, "No, I'll just give it to you," which sets off a red flag. You never accept something from somebody if they're in the business of selling things. And so he tells him, "Nah, I pay my way, old man. I always pay my way." And I kind of got that from when people used to talk about Chuck Berry, how he always made sure, because he'd been ripped off so many times from promoters that he gets the cash up front.
Yeah,
and he doesn't accept gifts.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah. He demanded that money up front because he got ripped off so many times.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's kind of how I took that story. And then of course there's no cheat sheet. There's no way for him to learn it except like a lot of musicians learn it from the record. You learn all your repertoire from a record, and he was learning it, and that's and he noticed that the fingerings and everything like that, the notes, it was all just similar notes. It was what I think I had it in several D, F, D, F. I don't know. I can't remember, but it was a lot of D. And what I was thinking, just so you would get this, and a lot of younger viewers might not, the drop D, which was
drop D
Black Sabbath and metal, and then it was carried over into grunge. And yeah, that I was thinking that he kind of discovered the detuning.
Oh, that's cool. And yeah, that's really.
I don't know if anybody else got that from it. They may not.
I didn't pick up on that, but that's fascinating. Yeah, and these are just. I think we picked maybe a handful of stories. I mean, there's a
right.
There's a bunch of them in here.
It might be about 16 stories, I think.
There's about that. What I'm trying to say is, folks, you got to get this book because there's a lot more than what we talked about.
Well, I can't believe I was almost at the end of the book, and I can't believe I almost forgot about Bill Haley. How could I forget about including him? Because he and the other thing about this book, I was getting ready. I was getting ready to take it into different decades, which I was going to end it in the late 80s, which would have been too massive for me to take on because there's no way I would have never written it. I think I did have
You could do a sequel book.
It's possible. Maybe. But I do like that time period. I like it sort of ends in 1980, 82 with Calvin Swale being, disappearing. Sort of. I mean, that's kind of the time period. It also kind of ends with another performer when he passes on. I think he passed on in the 1990s. But really, I was trying to do the Pulp Fiction thing where time didn't make any difference, that you could jump back and forth through the stories. But for the most part, the book kind of ends in 61 or 62. When a couple of everybody's careers was going down, things like that happening. So I was just trying to pick a time period. If I kept going past that, I don't know. It probably would have been very boring.
You'd be still writing, probably.
I would.
Yeah,
I would.
Yeah. Find the Booked on Rock website at bookedonrock.com. There you can find all the back episodes of the show, the latest episode in video and audio, links to all of the platforms where you can listen to the podcast, plus all the social media platforms. We're on Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and X. Also, check out the Booked on Rock blog, find your local independent bookstore, find out all the latest hot rock book releases, and before you go, check out the Booked on Rock online store. Pick up some Booked on Rock merch. It's all at bookedonrock.com. Are there still unexplored stories or legends in rock history, or have we really pretty much we've heard them all? Yeah,
I don't think so. I really don't. I think what's the band? Manic Street Preachers.
Yeah.
Well, he was the rhythm guitarist. Richie, I can't remember his last name. He disappeared in 94, I think, and people are still saying that they see him walking around out there in Manchester, which I don't think more than likely he probably did commit suicide like the police think.
What's the guy, they wonder if he was abducted by aliens. He disappeared.
Oh my gosh, that is a great one. I did want to include that.
Jim Sullivan. Is it Jim Sullivan?
Sullivan.
Yeah.
I wanted to do one.
New Mexico
but
desert.
His family is still alive. His kids are still alive. I didn't want to get any repercussions from that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get you.
But I love that. I did start a story about him. I remember Chauncey wanted me to write that story, and I think Jessica Cantana wrote an article about that because I asked her
Yes,
to.
I've known Jess from going back to our radio days.
Yeah.
And she
She's
writes
so
for the
good.
magazine. She's great. She's got her own podcast as well.
Yeah. It's a great podcast. But that I wanted that to be in the book, but I couldn't really do it. Oh man.
There was another one too, though, wasn't there? It was a bass,
a folk singer.
Well, but there's one I'm thinking there was a bassist for a band who claimed to have inside knowledge about,
and he disappeared. Right. Yes, but they found the tracks. He fell off a mountain.
Oh, okay.
In California. Hold on. It's Iron Butterfly.
Yes.
But he's not the original bass player.
Right. Okay.
He's like fourth or fifth down the line, and he played a little bit in the 80s. Then he became a scientist.
Yeah. When I read that article, it was like Ultimate Classic Rock. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah. Yeah. Philip Taylor Kramer, I think, is the one.
That's him. Yeah. Man.
Yeah.
Some great. No, we're not done.
No, we're not done.
We're still talking about Tupac is probably still alive.
Yeah.
Conspiracy theories are abound. You know that they're more popular than ever
because of the internet and those podcasts that you listen to that will just tell you anything, man. They
will. And I'm so grateful that there's podcasts like yours that just, at least you bring the writers on and they could set the story straight as much as possible,
straight from the source,
But you know what? It'd be fun if you had some of the ones that just made up the stories too.
Sure. As long as they don't harm anybody.
Well, that's it.
I think maybe there's a story there about like the podcaster who mysteriously disappears.
Well, that was sort of the original plot of this book.
Jesus.
And he receives this.
If you call that person Eric, I won't talk to you anymore.
No, you know what his name was? It was Calvin Swale.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, Swale as in, he's probably a scammer is what I was thinking.
Yeah.
But
see, now I'm looking behind me. Is there anybody in the room here?
You're thinking that shape is behind you?
Yeah, I can feel a cold breeze coming through.
Yeah,
oh, man. Yeah, thanks, man. The book is out now, Rock and Roll Ghosts, right?
Yeah. Mostly he put it up on Amazon and Google Books, but there are other sites that it goes to, there's that, I forgot, there's a couple British sites it'll go to. It goes to AbeBooks eventually. He uses some sort of algorithm that once you publish it on Amazon, it just goes everywhere.
So he is the person that publishes the book?
Chauncey.
Oh, Chauncey you're talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah, Chauncey and Lothar worked on this book. It's Screaming Eye Press.
So let's plug that too. So the book is out now. People can look for it. Screaming Eye Press. I think if they go to the website there, it's got to be.
It's there.
Plug the magazine, the website where people can find you.
Screaming Eye Press. You could look me up on Facebook if you wish. You'll probably find 100 other Mark Slades, just like 2 or 3 other Mark Slades on Amazon. That's not me. I'm definitely not the guy who writes the porn, and I'm not the actor Mark Slade from High Chaparral. But it's cool. If you want to say I am, whatever.
Oh, here you go. Your book is right there, front and center on screamingeyepress.com.
Yeah, he's been promoting it heavy. He's been doing really good with it.
It's an awesome cover. Who did the cover?
Thank you. Cameron Hampton. She's done a lot of work for us.
Yeah, for the magazine.
Cameron is so nice. I met Cameron. You remember? I think the station is still around. It's a cable station called Ovation. It's like an arts channel.
I think I've heard.
But they used to have their own website, and I used to go on there and look up artists and stuff. And I saw hers, and I saw that she was available. Anybody could email her, and I emailed her. Then she said, "Well, I'm on Facebook. You want to talk about some projects?" So nice. And that was back in 2011. So I've known her even longer than Chauncey and Lothar.
Oh yeah, thumbs up on this one, man. She did a great job on the cover. That's it. So yeah, I'll put the links, as many links as I can in the show notes so people can find.
Oh, we also have a Spotify
playlist. Yes, you told me about that. So I could put the link to that.
Yeah, and there's also 2 audio stories from the book. There's the Janice Martin one is there.
On Spotify?
Yeah, it's on Spotify. I
Send me
got it
those
up
links
there.
if you haven't yet.
I have them.
Cool.
I have them. I'm also getting 1 or 2 more stories that are going to be read. I don't want to do too many because, I don't want to do the entire book to be free. Then, nobody will buy it.
Right. Well, that's why I say we picked a few stories here, but there's a lot more. We don't want to give it all away. But
No.
Mark, thanks for coming on. Thanks for all of your support.
Every time you post something, I hit like and I reshare it as much as possible. It's a great source of information because I think there was a handful of stories the Carl Perkins story, Shoo would not have been written without you interviewing the writer of that book.
Oh, that's cool. Oh, he'll be happy to know that. He's a great guy from Australia.
Oh, I forgot that he was from Australia. Well, that story about the woman shooting the guy in the club that Carl was playing at, that's in my story.
Oh, that's cool. So I'll reach out to him and let him know. It's Jeff Apter.
That's it.
Yeah,
I have it in my notes. I forgot about that.
Jeff is a really nice guy, and I've had him on a couple times, and hope to have him back on again.
And tell him for me that is one of the best biographies I've ever read.
Cool, I will.
I read it in like 3 or 4 days. And another thing, if it wasn't for me being on your podcast before that, I wouldn't have gotten back into reading books about music. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I try to construct it so if you're not an avid reader, that's okay. You're still going to get the great stories, but you hope that, 1 out of every 10 people that usually don't read may end up picking up a book and have, like you have, where you either start reading again or you just never were a big reader before. And there's so much out there. There's so many great books out there. So,
and if it wasn't for this Kindle that I have, I wouldn't have gotten back into it as much. I mean, I would have. I mean, you can't write without reading. I just probably wouldn't have been reading those. And right now I'm reading one about Jack Holtzman and Elektra Records.
Oh, yes. Okay.
It's great.
Cool.
He wrote it actually.
Okay.
But it's more in a which is a strange way of doing a book. It's not even written like your normal book. It's interview style. So everybody that's ever been connected to him is being interviewed.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And they're giving their stories.
Yeah. Well, we just did an episode on Stereo Lab. They were on Elektra.
Yes, I know.
And the Doors.
I know. I listened to that Sunday.
Cool.
And thank you. I never heard of them.
Yeah. Stereo Lab, great band. Yeah. Mark, thanks again, man. And we will talk to you again down the road. All the best on the book, man. It's a winner.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Eric.
That's it. It's in the books.